The night my life flipped, a billionaire slid a laptop across a white tablecloth and offered me $5,000 just to read one page, not to serve it, not to clear the dishes, just to look at a screen. And he really thought that was all he was buying. To him, I was just the girl in the black apron at the Marigold Room, that downtown restaurant, where the napkins have more status than the staff, and the wine list is thicker than the employee handbook. He had no idea the broke waitress standing by his table could actually read the strange script on that screen, better than he understood half the deals his name was on. My name is Lila Carter. On paper, I was a linguistics major who never finished fluent in 6 languages, obsessed with old scripts that nobody at the restaurant cared about. In real life, I was 29, sharing a tiny apartment, over a laundromat, living on espresso, and leftover staff meals trying to keep my dad in a care facility he hated, and I could barely afford. Most nights, the world only saw Lila Server on a little black name tag. You know what I mean when your whole story gets flattened into a job title and a smile. That night, the room felt tight, like the air pressure had dropped a few degrees. The clinking of glasses around table 17 had gone quiet. Table 17 was our private glass box in the back, the one with its own door, its own rules, and a habit of swallowing tips and secrets whole. At the head sat Cole Harrington. Dark suit, colder eyes, the billionaire you only know if you pay attention when companies die on the news. Across from him, a skinny professor type was sweating through his collar, leaning over a laptop. "Cole, it is not possible," he kept saying. "The script is unstable. The dialect is mixed. I would need months." I was bussing the table next door, pretending to rearrange silverware because staff in that room are wallpaper. Cole did not raise his voice. He did not need to. "You told me you were the best in the field," he said, knife sharp. "I gave you 3 days. Now you are telling me you are useless with 48 hours left." The professor grabbed his bag and fled so fast he almost took my tray with him. Cole just stared at the laptop for a beat, jaw tight, then looked up and scanned the room. His eyes hit mine, kept going, then came back and locked in. "You," he said. My hands froze around a stack of plates. "Yes, sir." "My manager says you speak languages, plural," he said like it annoyed him. I went straight to my standard lie. "Just some French and Spanish for the kitchen, sir." He smirked. "That is not what your file says." Lila Carter, linguistics major, historical scripts dropped out. "Shame for you, lucky for me. Sit." So I sat apron and all on the edge of a table that probably cost more than my car. He turned the laptop toward me. On the screen was a high-resolution scan of old parchment, tight angular Arabic script faded along the edges, little corrections squeezed between lines. One look and my stomach did that weird drop where fear and recognition mix. My dad's study used to smell like this looked. Ink and dust and coffee and stubbornness. "Here is my problem," Cole said, fingers steepled like a movie villain. "My competitor is using this thing to claim their royal ancestor, wrote a diary in the 10th century, and that diary supposedly proves his family owned a chunk of desert that now sits on more lithium than some countries. I think that is a lie. I hired an expert, he quit. I have an arbitration in Geneva in 2 days. I will pay you $5,000 to read one page and tell me what you see. You sign an NDA, you look, you leave. Yes or no? $5,000 for 10 minutes of being myself. That number hit me harder than any insult I had ever swallowed on that floor. It was a month of my dad's care, a chunk of my rent, real oxygen, when I felt like I had been underwater for years. But under the shock, something old and quiet woke up the part of me my father used to train with bedtime stories about forgery and truth. "I want to read the NDA first," I said, and hearing my own real voice, not the cheerful server voice, actually startled me. Cole's mouth twitched. "Good," he said, "follow security." In a small leather room, they handed me a tablet full of legal teeth. The NDA was brutal. Millions in penalties if I ever talked no phone, no outside notes, no pretending later I did not understand what I was walking into. It was written to make a normal person back out. I signed. When you have watched your father argue with invisible critics in a locked ward over manuscripts, no one will even look at you. Do not walk away from the first real chance to drag the truth into the light, even if it scares you. They dropped my phone in a signal-blocking box, dimmed the lights, and brought the manuscript up on a wall-sized screen. Everything else disappeared. That scan filled the wall. Not just old Arabic, not some neat little diary. The base script was a North African style from Al-Andalus, dense and clever numbers tucked inside letters, dots, acting like secret switches. My dad called it ink gymnastics when I was a kid. I stepped closer without thinking and pointed to a line. "Your expert went looking for a diary." I said, "But this is a ledger." He thought this said, "My tears fall on the long road." But with this marker, those tears are pearls, and that long road is a caravan route. Whoever wrote this was tracking shipments, not having a feelings journal. Cole watched my face instead of the text. "And the catch?" he asked. I pointed at a section where the ink sat darker, smoother. "This layer is newer," I said. "The ink composition is different. The hand is too careful. Somebody took a real boring 10th century shipping record and overwrote parts of it to sound like a prince pouring out his soul. Underneath is trade. On top is a story built for buyers." He let out a slow breath. "Can you prove that to people who do not care about dots and caravan routes?" "If you give me time and data," I said. "And if you tell me why you care this much, yeah, I think so." So he laid it out. The Kharif Basin, a disputed stretch of desert sitting on a fortune in lithium and rare minerals. An old rule that says you cannot just buy rights, you have to prove some ancient family claim through authentic documents. His rival Victor Lang at Orion waving this manuscript around as a royal diary. Then he changed the stakes. "The 5,000 is for tonight," he said, calm as if he was ordering dessert. "If you take this on, I erase your father's medical debt. I put $2 million in a trust as an advance. I give you housing security, any database you want. In exchange, you work for me until Geneva. You decode this, you testify, we win." It should have been a simple yes. Instead, my brain went to one question. Who did Orion hire to say this thing is real? I asked. Who is their expert? He scrolled his phone, turned it so I could see, and there it was. Professor Sebastian Harlow, perfect suit, perfect smile, my father's old star student. The man whose career took off right after anonymous accusations tore my dad's apart. I had seen that face taped to my father's wall, ripped out of magazines, cursed at in the middle of the night. In that instant, everything snapped into focus. This was not just about money or even about the basin. This was about the man who had taken my father's work, twisted it, then helped bury him. "We have a deal," I told Cole, voice flat. "But you need to understand you are not just hiring a translator. You are putting a match in the hands of the one person who knows exactly how he set this up." And the next 3 days blurred together. Jet engines, glass walls, coffee that actually tasted like coffee. One minute I was folding aprons, the next I was in a penthouse staring at the scribe of Kharif on a screen the size of my entire apartment, my hair still smelling like kitchen grease. Cole's people brought me tailored clothes and a powerful computer, but what I really needed was in a set of beat-up cardboard boxes. The ones from my dad's old office that the university had quietly shipped off when they labeled him a problem. Inside were letters from a German paleographer, Dr. Ingrid Weiss, half in normal German, half in this tight, looping shorthand my dad had taught me as a game. In those notebooks, she and my father had mapped out the work of a 19th century forger named Charles Duval, his ink mixtures, his habit of taking real documents and layering dramatic fake diaries over them, the rabbit skin glue from one specific estate he loved. They had even drafted a chapter about a fake desert prince's lament. My dad, too proud and too trusting, had emailed that draft to Harlow with a line that said, "We are on the edge of something huge," not long after the anonymous plagiarism complaints started. A few years later, Ingrid was gone, my father was in a locked ward, and Harlow was flying business class to talk about authenticating early Arabic texts. Yeah, that happened. By the time our plane landed in Geneva, I knew what we were really holding. A 19th century fake resting on a 10th century spine, and exactly whose fingerprints were on it. The arbitration room in Geneva looked like old money had built itself a chapel. Dark wood, thick carpet, a silence that felt expensive. On one side sat Victor and Orion's lawyers, and next to them, Harlow, in a perfect suit, smiling like this was a lecture he had already aced. On our side, it was Cole, his lead counsel, and me in a navy suit that was not mine, with Ingrid's notebooks and my dad's emails in a folder on my lap. Harlow went first. For hours he talked about poetic metaphors and tragic princes, about fire damage that changed the ink, about how that coffee reference was really a spiritual metaphor. The arbitrators nodded along. If I had not seen the lab reports and Ingrid's shorthand, I might have nodded too. Then they called my name. Walking to that little stand, I could feel every reason I did not belong in that room. No title, no letters after my name, just years of waiting tables and reading in between double shifts. But underneath that, I felt something steadier. The lead arbitrator glanced at my file. "Ms. Carter, you have no current academic affiliation, is that correct?" "That is correct," I said. "I used to pour wine for people like you to keep my father in a facility, and in between, I learned to read the same scripts Professor Harlow built his career on. The brain stayed the same. The uniform changed." One of them actually smiled for a second. Victor did not. "This is ridiculous," he snapped. "Harrington has brought us a waitress and expects us to take her over a world-renowned scholar." Cole just shrugged. "I brought the only person who actually read the manuscript." I did not try to sound fancy. I pointed to the projected image and walked them through the fingerprints. Where the ink shifted from ancient carbon to a 19th century tannate mix, where the language jumped forward centuries, how the famous coffee line shows up long before coffee was a trade good. Then I put up a scan of my father's draft, where he described that exact kind of mistake as the kind of thing a vain forger might do. I showed them the email where he sent that draft to Harlow. You could feel the room change temperature. When we brought out Ingrid's shorthand notebooks and matched the ink samples she had cataloged to the lab report on the scribe of Karif, the last of the shine came off. The lead arbitrator took off his glasses and looked hard at Harlow. "Professor, do you have any response to Ms. Carter's evidence?" Harlow tried to play it as a grudge, called my father's work discredited, called me biased, said I was here out of revenge. Before he could really spin it, Victor stood up, red in the face, and jabbed a finger at him. "He lied to me," he shouted. "He guaranteed authenticity. He sourced this document. Orion relied on his expertise. If anyone committed fraud here, it is him." And just like that, the wolves turned on each other. The tribunal dismissed Orion's claim with prejudice, referred Harlow's testimony for investigation, and two extremely calm officers walked him out of the room, while he glared at me like I had personally pulled the floor out from under him. As he passed, he hissed, "You have no idea what you've done." And for once in my life, I knew I did. Out in the marble hallway afterward, my legs finally started shaking. The adrenaline that had been keeping me upright burned off, and I had to lean on the wall. Cole stood across from me, tie a little crooked, watching me like he was seeing me clearly for the first time. "I have broken men in boardrooms," he said quietly, "but I have never seen anyone walk into a room where the paperwork says they do not belong and pull one thread so clean that everything falls apart." That was... He did not finish the sentence. I shrugged because if I let myself really feel it, I was going to cry ugly tears in front of a billionaire. "He stole my father's work and faked the rest." I said the fall was always coming. I just happened to be there for the last shove. Then came the part people always fight about in the comments. He honored the deal. My dad's debt cleared $2 million in a trust, and then tried to hire me. "Come work for me full-time," he said. "I'll build a division around you. Antiquities legacy, risk your own lab, your own team, unlimited budget. You answer to no one but me. You will never think about rent again. I am not offering you a job, Lila. I am offering you power. Say yes." And I will be honest for a second, that sounded nice. After years of being the help, the idea of being the person everyone else reports to is tempting. But then I thought about my dad in that ward, about Ingrid dying with her notebooks boxed up, about Harlow walking out between two officers, still convinced he was the victim. The line between them did not come from what they knew. It came from what they were willing to trade for their names on the door. So I told him no. "I am going to bring my dad home." I said, I am going to sit somewhere that does not lock the doors at night and read something that is not evidence. I have spent 10 years soaking in other people's ambition. I am not signing up for yours full time. He actually looked stunned, then he laughed short and real. "You are dangerous," he said. "You just got my money and kept your soul." That is when I gave him my counter. "I will take the $2 million, I said, but I want it to endow a foundation, the Carter Weiss Institute, my father's name and Dr. Weiss's name on the front, scholarships for students who get pushed aside for telling the truth, a lab for people who care more about ink than headlines. That is my price." He thought about it for maybe 3 seconds and nodded. "Done," he said. "Turns out backing a waitress who reads dead languages might be the smartest bet I have placed." So yeah, I walked away from the corner office and the corporate empire and went home with a different set of keys. One to my dad's new place, one to a future building where his name will finally mean what it was supposed to, and thanks to a very motivated seller, one to the front door of the Marigold Room, because the old owner suddenly decided he was tired of the restaurant business. The next time I walked in, my old manager rushed over, ready to yell about me vanishing from my shift, and I just smiled and said, "Relax, I am here for the 5 o'clock walkthrough with the new ownership," and watched his brain try to catch up. Sometimes justice is a gavel and a pair of handcuffs. Sometimes it is just being the one sitting at the table where they used to tell you to hurry up with the bread. So now I am curious what you would have done. If you were standing in that hallway in Geneva, would you have taken Cole's offer and tried to clean things up from the inside with all that money and power? Or do you think walking away and building something on your own terms was the only way not to turn into the thing we had just taken down? Do you believe the system that lifted up a guy like Harlow and buried people like my dad is broken because of a few bad actors, or is it built to reward whoever looks confident and punish whoever asks the wrong questions? And have you ever watched someone get treated like they were nothing because of their job or their clothes, only to find out later They were quietly the sharpest person in the room, tell me. In the comments, argue with me, share your own stories of being underestimated. And if this hit a nerve, tap like send it to a friend who loves a slow burn revenge story. And stick around, because there are a lot more buried truths waiting for someone stubborn enough to read them out loud.